What time is it?
Pasa pasa.
Time?
Pasa pasa.
Time? Every girl, every girl, every girl, every girl. I go me a
Pasa pasa.
don't stop, girl, wine, drink until I get. Drink and rave till the morning light, my girl. Center. Have a drop stand.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Relationship Pasa Pasa podcast. This is our third episode, I believe, for the new year. So we're still enjoying the feeling of the new year and the spring. And we're really excited to bring another podcast episode to you, and just want to always say thank you. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for spending your time with us. We love your feedback. Please continue to interact with us. Oh, and before I actually continue, I wanted to say that you should follow us on Instagram at Relationship Pasa Pasa Podcast, because we're doing a new thing. We have started doing Instagram lives, and we don't want you to miss it. So stay tuned for our upcoming lives. All right. So before I begin, let's do the roll call. So Mish,
Here.
Harry,
Hey.
Soph.
Hi, everyone.
All right, and this is Shar. So today we're going to talk about the strong Black woman. Feel like there is no doubt that there are many strong Black women represented here today. And we know many, they're our friends and our family. But what does the strong Black woman mean to us? And what does it really represent out in the world, right? So let's start with our experiences in the world. Think about adjectives that you commonly hear used to describe a strong Black woman. It may not always be accurate, but some of them are very popular. So complete this sentence for me. I don't know who wants to start, just pop in. But a strong Black woman is
Independent.
independent,
I'd say aggressive.
aggressive,
Strong Black woman is stands by her man.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good
you
one.
stole mine, girl. I was gonna say ride or die.
Uh-huh. We always riding and dying.
And dying.
No, seriously.
So much riding and dying.
So much riding and dying. So I mean, no, seriously. So even before, and you can always still like pop in with more adjectives, but before we start like listing a bunch of them, right? What are our thoughts about these adjectives? I'm going to start with Carrie's, because Carrie's was mine, because I was like ride or die, because I feel like we are known as the head of household, but the domestic, but we're going to put together two pennies and make $1. We also are the ones that will stay up late. We'll fill every gap. And sometimes I don't know if it's a positive thing or a negative thing, because we're so driven to fill this role, sometimes we get called aggressive. So Misha, when you think about the aggressive, what do you think about, how we're described when they're saying Black women are aggressive?
When I think about that, I think about this episode on Girlfriends that I watched.
I was just about to say the same thing. Okay, let's say it's the same one you're talking about. Keep going.
Maybe not. Joan was partner. She was in the boardroom and nobody was paying her any attention. No attention.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, so can go into it. Doesn't matter. At the end of the day, she figured out what worked for her for them to listen. And of course, that wasn't really her, bending over and showing her cleavage, whatever the situation. But I think at this point, we've realized that we aren't heard unless we can be heard. And so we are strong in how we say things. And sometimes we stand up for what we believe in, and people portray that as being aggressive. We're not trying to be aggressive, I don't think. Some people may have it ingrained in them that, you have to be aggressive to get what you want. But I don't think half the time we're trying to be aggressive. A lot of people portray me as being aggressive. in what I am, in how I'm saying it, in what I am saying. And I think that's a part of my personality, but I don't mean to come across aggressive. So I think that's just one of the things I've accepted, that that's just how it is. I am loud, which they say Black women are also loud, aggressive, just not approachable, all these things. But I
yeah, we are known for having like some stank face, right? Supposedly, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's a stereotype. I don't think I am unapproachable, but it may come across that way because I am trying to stand up for myself, or I am saying something that you may not like, or I am not just sitting in a corner because that's what you assume that I should be doing. I'm not supposed to be, or I got to work twice as hard to get things done. And because of that, when you're working twice as hard, you have to shout twice as loud, say things twice as many times. And because of that, it just comes across as what it may not be. I may be aggressive, I may be loud, I may be a lot of things, but just is what it is.
Yeah, no,
Misha, because I was going to reference Girlfriend as well, because I just watched this episode last night where she's now Joan is now engaged, and she remember the one that she wanted the stove and the
I didn't get that far, ma'am.
I'm so sorry. Oh, I can't talk about it.
I didn't get that far.
You can.
The second time because I watched Girlfriends the first time. I just don't, it's been so long, I don't remember the exact episodes. So I remember this episode because I got that far. And
okay, well, I won't give the details, but she's now with a special friend, and
man, you just said she was engaged. Ain't no special friend.
Okay, well, she's engaged, and you know, she wanted to get this stove, which is very expensive, but she's engaged to a person who have always been has not have money, right? He's not used to having money the way she does, so he's more of a, you know, low-key type of spender. And they had this big fight, and she wouldn't stop. She just kept going and going and going, and he said nothing. He was like, okay, you know what? He just stood up and took off his pants and gave it to her and said, obviously that's what you want, and he walked away. And honestly, I watched that episode, I said to myself, oh my gosh, am I like that sometimes? Like, as females, we don't know when to stop. We can be aggressive sometimes, because honestly, I could see myself doing what she's doing, but now that I'm watching it, I'm like, oh my gosh, Joan, you should stop. Like, you should stop. But I'm seeing myself doing exactly what she was doing. So I feel like sometimes we can, but it's not intentional. Like, she didn't mean to be
right
aggressive or mean or whatever. She's just saying, we have money now. Let's buy something good one time instead of buying cheap things over a period of time. You end up spending more money in the long run. Right. But it's how she went about saying it that came off as aggressive. And he just gave her the pants and walked out. He was like, that's the role you want? Here you go. Go ahead, play it. I'm like, oh my God.
So I think that's a good example. That episode with Joan is interesting, because I think that is a point about strong Black women. And I think the other point to that episode is she's used to being single. So she's used to making her own money, buying her own thing, buying what she wants. And now she has to compromise those values with her partner, which was the real struggle. So it's like the guy felt emasculated, and she feels like, well, I'm just standing up for myself, right? Both of which are very valid. But I do think, as you're talking about it, it reminds me of a conversation I've had this with two separate male friends, which I think is interesting. And they have this perspective that Black women, and these are men who love Black women, right? They're coming from a place of love. But they said to me, Carrie, Black women can be disrespectful more than any other race. Y'all feel like y'all got to win the argument. Y'all got to win the fight at any cost. And it made me pause, just like Soph just said, like, am I like this? Am I like beaten down? You know, I got to win. And I'm sure I've been that person in some conversation with other people. But it did cause me to think about it, because I'm like, initially I was like, no, I don't know the Black women you talking to, because the people I know, I'm sure these are people I know. I'm not dating my girlfriends. I know them as friends. I don't know them in relationships. So I'm like, they're probably like that. I don't know.
Listen, I think we can be aggressive, but I think we get lumped up as aggressive. So here's the thing. I think everyone can be aggressive. Do you know, but I think we get lumped up as aggressive, with no one thinking about context. There's a lot of reasons we're aggressive. Sometimes it's just our personality. That's just how we stay. That's literally how we bond. Sometimes it is our exposures and our environment that has conditioned us to be that way.
Right.
And so sometimes we're just leaning back on what we know for survival, for instance, right?
I agree with that, Shar. And I use that argument as a social worker in this conversation. But what I learned is that the same accountability we have for other people, like our men are traumatized. We expect them to deal with their trauma and come to this relationship loving us and caring for us and treating us as vulnerable as we want to be in that space. We have to hold ourselves accountable to that extent too. Because yes, we are molded. And I'm like, we have a whole history of being mistreated. Right? I was on the soapbox with this. But there has to be a level of accountability.
Yes.
And I had to agree with him on that. I'm like, you're right. You are right. You're right. You can't be disrespectful.
Yes.
Disrespectful has a price.
Okay, but disrespectful and aggressive, two different things.
Correct.
They often get lumped in the same, right? Because it's
I don't think it's the same thing. And I think you can still be aggressive, but be hopefully kind of like how Misha said, sometimes she's called aggressive, be aware. Because listen, I don't even debate people anymore because I realized, like, I remember in college, my roommate, Carrie Lee, I can debate someone to the ends of the world and I am unfazed because I'm straight just debating. But the other person is mad heated. And I'm like, here, just, all right, going. Won't stop, don't stop. So that step is to be aware, just like how Misha. So sometimes I actually take a pause, and say, you know what, let me sit back on this because I know that I can be pretty opinionated and obstinate. But disrespectful to me, I know it gets lumped together, but I feel like it's a different thing. But then, like, even though I'm aggressive, I don't call people out their names. I'm pretty patient with people.
Disrespect looks different. You can be you cannot say a curse word and disrespect somebody, especially that you're in partnership with. Right? Like, someone can speak to this. I'm sure you have these dynamics, right?
That's true. And I was going to give an example. I was going to give an example about that because the first year, and I tell people all the time, it's not a secret. The first year of my marriage was rough. And Sharifa made a hint when she said, your background, how you were raised and played a big role. I'm coming from a background where I was the baby in the family, right? So people will call it spoiled. I call it a little privileged, I won't call it spoiled. But he'll come from a point where he's the eldest. He was the eldest. So he always got the final say. He always made, the decision or whatever, however you want to put it. So when we put ourselves together, it was kind of hard figuring out a role and a dynamic. And at one point I was called aggressive and disrespectful, but it wasn't like I meant to be aggressive or disrespectful. It's just the role that I play where I always just said, because I was always so little and the baby, I always had to raise my voice to be heard. Someone was like yelling to be heard over my siblings. So in my mind, that was normal.
Right.
It's his family, their yell is like this. Okay, everybody. And I'm like, speak up. So he's like, why are you always so loud? I'm like, I'm not loud. But I had to realize, and again, time helps with everything, right? I had to realize, okay, I am loud, But again, being aware, as Carrie said, you can't be so set in your own ways that you can't step back from yourself and say, whoa, there's a point to the madness. And so, it's all about being aware.
I think I think you're right on the money. So anytime you have to live with someone and make decisions with someone, life altering decisions with someone, and have to really figure that out, you get a mirror to yourself,
I
and
also
then that's when you realize, you know, the and because that person is really good at frustrating you and getting you to the end of
right.
your then you're like, oh, I'm not good in this space, or I don't like what I look like when I'm upset, or I don't like how I react to this, or whatever, for
Yeah,
sure.
I agree. I also think that people's perception of who you are, what you're portraying, has a lot to do also with the roles that you're playing. So, in the sense of Joan and her fiance, or Soph and her husband, or even the guys that Carrie's with, if you go into the relationship saying you are going as the woman, forget even being a Black woman, as the woman, you'll be submissive. And then every other aspect of your life, you are not submissive. You have to be the lead. You have to take on these responsibilities. To now set that aside and not be submissive, or to be submissive in that moment or in that relationship, takes work, takes being, it takes a lot of things. And maybe that's what they're receiving, is this person is being disrespectful, this person's, I mean, they might have to be that type of person everywhere else, as a parent, as an employee, as a business owner. They may have to be that, have that aggressive nature in their relationships, outside of that relationship, and in that relationship the dynamic has to change. So two Black people being together, now you have to find a balance between um being a strong Black woman and being a submissive Black woman.
But
So
this is
go
my
ahead.
problem, all of a sudden, and so this is kind of where I think this needs to go, is some of these are stereotypes,
Right.
right? So just because you've met a Black woman and maybe she speaks her mind doesn't mean she's aggressive. Maybe she just knows when she wants to speak her mind. Like, all of a sudden, because you show up in a space as a Black woman, I don't feel you know me. Like you like, I feel like that's a good part of this conversation, to be like, we're as varied as every other person is. Because I
Right.
remember first I was expected to be loud, funny, fancy. That's not me. Like, I might be a little quirky. I'm a little corny. I don't want to be the center of attention. Like, I don't have to be all the things. Like, sometimes you just see someone and get to know them. So instead of having the preconceived notions, then you could get to learn to like know someone.
Right.
But sometimes, not lie, the
And
stereotypes,
sometimes,
they bear a burden on us. So sometimes I think that's why sometimes people are so um prickly, because they already feel all of those things, and so they react into something that's not there. So we
Right.
feel like they expect us to be loud, so now we're conscious of our volume, and then they expect us to be this, so now we're saying, like, let me fix myself so I'm not that. So sorry, Sophie.
no, no, you were finishing. I thought you were done. I apologize. But I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with being a strong Black woman. It's no, it's possible to be being a strong Black woman and submissive at the same time,
Right.
right? Because the two is not independent of each other. The two are independent of each other.
Right.
You can be a strong Black woman and you can still be submissive. A
Right.
lot of things that Sharifa just said, they put a lot of stereotype on the concept of strong Black woman that most times I don't even think it's true. I
Right.
mean, they can be strong Black woman and strong white woman and strong Spanish woman and strong every woman. Um, Being submissive though, in for a Black woman, I think it's a learned art.
Yep. That is very true.
I think it's a learned art. Because I mean, just follow our generation. We have always had to work twice as hard to accomplish everything. Nothing has ever been given to us. So just with that alone, you always have to push a little more, or be a little louder, or a
Right.
little bit more aggressive, and I
But then
think
it's
that
too
should be
much.
taken into right. That should be taken into a consideration when they start putting labels.
Right. And I agree. I also think though that there are stereotypes that we ourselves even feed into.
True.
And so it's just perpetuated because they think it, we think it, everybody now thinking it. For example, the one about Black women being loyal to the bone
I was
is
about
a
to ask
thing.
Carrie to talk about it, about standing by your man and being like real, like loyal,
I
right?
mean, I don't have much else to say, beyond that. I think it's like a mark of honor for sometimes for Black women to put up with all levels of disrespect and under some serious duress if she sticks through. It's like you survived the struggle, love, and it's real. And I mean,
For real.
right, that may be true for some couples, but I don't know that that's generally true.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there are a slew of reasons why we stay. You can go into, a whole slew of socioeconomic reasons and patterns of DV and all the other like things that are co-occurring at any given time. So it's complicated, but I do think I know growing up I felt like, yeah, you got to stick it out no matter what is going on.
Right.
And I saw that in across multiple generations, whether it's my mom, my aunt, my grandma, just that's just what it was. So to unlearn that as you're choosing a partner in life is the thing, right?
Thing.
Learning what love means to you and defining that it's not about struggle solely. There has to be moments of prosperity and happiness and joy and all the other range of emotions outside of struggle and strife. So
Yeah. And I think that's perfect. I think that that shows in all aspects, not even just in your love life. I think when people see strong Black women, they assume that they've been through the gutter and are crawling out of it in every aspect. If you don't crawl out of it, are you really a strong Black woman though? If you didn't have to work and work and work and fight and put up with the disrespect, are you really a strong Black woman? That is the question, because we just assume that you're doing it, you're loud, you're extra, you're putting up with it because at the end of the day, you strong and you can do it. And if you didn't do it, then you ain't strong. So it's not even just people even put themselves in that situation because they just assume that that's a part of how it's supposed to be. I mean, I already told you guys that I assumed that during my marriage, when I was getting into it, while I was in it, that it was supposed to be hard. It was supposed to be a hot mess because you're supposed to make it through it. That's the idea. That's what you see. You see the strength, you hear the stories. This person did this with however many blah, blah, blah. And you're like, well, if they can do it, I can do it. Let this struggle bus continue. What? And if that's not the case, then are you really a strong person? Are you really, how much weight can you put on yourself for you to be considered a strong woman and a strong Black woman at that? So I think we do it to ourselves. It's been passed down to us, and it just is just gonna continue.
Yeah, I think a lot of times we take on some of the stereotypes, but if we still like are in the space of stereotypes, some positive ones I know for sure is I always hear like Black women are driven. So like when they see us in spaces, they know we're not here to play.
Mm-hmm.
We're showing up. We are prepared.
That's
like
true.
yep. I like those are some absolutely. I know Sophie had mentioned independent. That is definitely a thing that like we know how to and I don't know if that's always healthy, but we
Yeah.
definitely know how to make it. Like if we have to do things on our own, we find a way. That's kind of like that same thing where I always was told how my grandmother would find a way to make something. Like
Mhm.
my parents, my mom and my aunties would say, what? Grandma make shoes, and she said these shoes have to work this way and this outfit have to work that way. And it's just like we're always, and I do want to talk about whether some of these lead to like literal chronic stress and like wear and tear on our bodies, like physically and emotionally. But I would say, like you step in spaces, and as a Black woman, they say, oh, you're driven
And
like
powerful.
we expect you, yeah, you're powerful, we expect you to shine, like go
Well,
girl.
Cheryl, I don't know that that's my experience that you are expected to shine. I think you got to prove yourself in those spaces. And sometimes when you come in those spaces credentialed and with experience, you still have to prove yourself in that
Yeah,
space.
we should probably define the space. Good point.
Yeah, once you've proven yourself in the space, then it's like, okay, right? We have confidence in this person. But I don't know that it's an expectation that when you come to the table as a Black woman, even if you come to the table with all these accolades and your work should speak for itself,
Yeah,
when you get to the space, there's still a level of proving that has to happen.
That's true.
you are absolutely correct. And I think we should definitely define the space, because I think this is the kind of glory we laud upon our girls in our spaces. It's like, yes, girl, go girl, yes, da. But you're right. When you go to work, how heavily do you feel, like you're just saying, the need to establish and prove yourself? And I'll say, I remember when I was getting advice when I was like going into the working world. Don't want to watch how those people dress. You dress good. Don't want to watch how those people act. You act this way, because they're just waiting for you to act just like them to judge you. You as lazy, not them. They're all right, but you don't go in there. And so I remember I used to always get
That is true.
look more professional than them, act more professional than them, set a mark for yourself.
That's true. It's a heavy burden, though.
It is a heavy burden. It's a lot, because like Misha was saying, you have to show up here this way, be perfect, no emotion, don't be too angry, and then you have to show up in another place, be calm. It's like you get whiplash.
No, seriously. I mean, I can't even imagine. And I find myself doing that too, because you have to show up in different places as different people. I cannot work mode with my children. I used to do that. I cannot do that. I have to be very, very, very intentional about who I am and where. But as you said, whiplash, sometimes I gotta catch myself.
No, but that goes back to what Carrie said at the beginning. It's like I'm just seeing full circles, because Carrie was talking about you have to catch yourself. So when we're in a space with a partner, right, and we're coming off aggressive, borderline on disrespectful, you almost have to like be self-aware and catch yourself before.
Yeah, we can't function in autopilot, right? Because I think life is about duality. It is about being strong and powerful, and also being about being vulnerable and submissive and all the other things that we have to be in different spaces. But it's hard to be those things and transition from space to space in that way if you're not in the moment of that space. Because if you're still on work mode, then you're not in the mode with your family and your children and your partner. Like, it's a different space and requires a different version of you to show up in that space. And they're both valid. They don't often coexist in the same way.
Wouldn't it be nice if we could show up in all spaces as ourselves?
I think that's us.
Yeah, I think that's the duality. So it is you, but it's just a different side of you. And I actually
sometimes
think that's
it's
healthy.
not you.
Well, if it's not you, that's different. But sometimes I was gonna say sometimes I think it's healthy, because I learned to let go. Like, there's a lot of important things I learned when I was married. Like, I learned to see myself. I guess you can't escape yourself, because people probably get to the edge of your anger, so that you have nothing else.
And escape yourself. I like that.
No, yeah, because at this point now, well, if you're not on the struggle bus, maybe you don't know. But if you're on the struggle bus, you know that that you really get to wrestle with who you are and how you want to show up. And I learned that as much as I'm opinionated and as much as I do like to organize and I enjoy submitting.
Right.
It's like and it's not because I don't have an opinion and I don't have anything to say, or a valid space in this world. It's because you find a partner who you want to find a partner who you can trust enough and you are happy to submit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's very true. Some people are not that fortunate. Let's just put it that way. I mean, some people have to show up to work a whole different person. And I'm hoping that people are able to be their true selves with the people who are most important to them. So their family, etc., their partners, whatever. But some people cannot show up to work themselves. If they show up to work themselves, people are going to take it how, maybe in the wrong way because they just don't know who they are and never got a chance to know that person and appreciate them for who they are and cannot show up as that person. And so it literally I guess it just depends, but
isn't the goal, right? I think at some point in all of our lives, some longer than others, we're doing things we don't necessarily want to do.
Yeah.
And I think isn't the point that you ultimately get to a space where you can show up as yourself? And I grapple with this because I talk to, my peers and my friends. And when I talk to people who don't like what they do, my question is often, what is your plan? Because I don't know how to be of best support to a friend who, in my mind, I'm like, well, you're in a space that you don't feel like your gifts and talents are being utilized in the right way. And you feel like there's so much more you have to offer. In my mind, I'm like, you have to go out and find that. Like no one's going to drop that in your lap. No one's going to change your life for you. You have to go out and live your life. And I know it's much simpler to say it than do it. But my curiosity is, well, what's your plan to make that happen? Because it can't be that. And again, people go through their whole life, right? Not doing what they want to do. And that's purely their right. But I do think as a friend, my challenge is always, hey, so what's your plan? Like, what do you want to do? Because then it tells me how I can support you in that doing. Because if you plan on staying, then I know, okay, you just need me to listen to you vent. All right. Versus if you plan on making some moves, then I know, okay, when I hear some opportunities for this person and I know they're interested in this, I'm going to want to connect them to that opportunity because I know that's what they're looking for,
right.
So I feel like I get a little bit queasy when I'm in those conversations with friends because I'm like, all right, well, tell me what you need me to do because I'm a doer. Like I want to do something.
Right.
When I hear something is wrong or you're in limbo or whatever that might be.
When I hear stuff like that from people, it comes back to could be. Let's not say that this is the case because one, as I told you, some people enjoy being on the struggle bus. They do. They love the idea that they're downtrodden, that life is unfair. Because if, God forbid, life comes easy, then what's the point?
What's there to complain about?
What's the point? So there are people who love being on the struggle bus. And then there are people who feel like it's their intention to be there, to be on the struggle bus so that they can be an example for other people. So, let's see, for example, maybe a Black woman being on the police force with a bunch of Trump supporters. Why would you do that to yourself? But maybe you are there because even though it sucks and these people are terrible, I'm not saying, I'm just throwing out a hypothetical situation. Maybe you're there to show that you can't kick me out. I am here to stay. I am trying to make a difference, even though it sucks for me. So there are these options as opposed to let me try to find an easier route or let me try to make something better or find a new route or whatever the situation. There are many ways to look at it. There are these people also who stick on the struggle bus for whatever reason they decide to do. But you're right. I don't know that I want to deal with people who are like, life is terrible all the time. And I'm just
Well,
going
life can't be terrible all the time. And I get that. I also do think that sometimes your life's purpose is to be a disruptor. Sometimes that's your life purpose, and you're not unhappy about right. You appreciate the change you have the potential to make, even though you might not be comfortable with the situation itself.
Right.
Right. So you have. I saw this recently, which is not a recent issue, but it's recently been in the news a couple of times about affirmative action students getting called out on college campuses. Like, oh, you're only here because of affirmative action. Okay. But like, they're going to excel. They're going to go
like a cookie
in uncomfortable spaces so that the next person that comes along, the hope is it reduces the stigma associated with the thing that you're trying to make a bad thing.
That is a thing. That is an actual factual thing. I know that's an absolute thing in my field of work. I mean, when I look at my mentor and she's like, girl, when I first came, and I'm fortunate. I don't think a lot of people have their boss is like a Black woman, but she's like, listen, and she like lays it as it is, what she experienced when she started decades ago, what I need to say, what I need to do, and make sure you get. And I appreciate that. And you're right. Yeah. Initially, you're right. So you're in a space that's uncomfortable, and maybe you're there for a purpose.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess I don't know if this is a lighter note or not, but do you remember it was in the news early 2000, maybe mid 2000? It was popping up all of these. It was newscasters and like people in corporate America. It was a big thing that they were able to wear their hair at work or on TV. And it really
that's still happening now.
Yeah.
Really?
Yes.
So even till today, people like it's a thing to show up at work, be considered professional and be respected for what you know, and not, because you're here, you're wearing it the way it came out your head, or you're wearing braids or locks.
Yes.
Right. So, I mean, there's a lot of like complicated things that we have to deal with when we step out of like maybe our homes or our comfortable places.
I think I'm also curious. Misha mentioned being seen as aggressive, and I'm like, well, I think about who the audience is, right? Because I think as Black women, I'm not speaking for all Black people or all Black women, but I think generally when we enter a space, we are mindful of, fitting into this angry Black woman stereotype. But I think it differs depending on the space you're in. If you're in corporate America, it's a different environment. And I would like to think social work is, I don't want to say less intense, but maybe less intense than corporate. But there's still, this stereotype around being angry and being this angry Black person. So I'm just curious, for me, is it about the audience, right? Like, how is it a race thing, and does it matter that you sit in a corporate space?
I think it also depends on your field of study, right? Because I'm in HR. HR is very large percent women. And so I think that's also a little different, but I also work at a law firm where that is very large percent white men. So as a Black woman coming into that, you have to be a different type of person. I'm pretty sure that we've talked about this situation before because we talk about it at work. What we realize is that Black women aren't sticking around in corporate America, as in they're not sticking around at these law firms because the people who are able to tolerate these spaces are thinking beyond these spaces. So they get in, they are able to keep up, but they are able to surpass. So now the people who are, if they are barely managing, then they're at the bottom and they're not going to make it. They're going to be at the bottom. The people who are making it ain't thinking about this. This is nothing. So they're not sticking around. They're thinking beyond this. They're not thinking about opening up their own company. They're not thinking about going into politics. They're thinking beyond this moment. And so we find that there are these two type of people who, as you said, like being on the struggle bus. And then there are people who are thinking beyond the struggle bus. There are people who are sticking around and saying, let me be the person who makes this change. Because ain't nobody got time for that. The times are moving faster than I need to be the one that represents, or I need to bring more people in. And there are definitely women who do this, but the majority of us, well, them, because I am not an attorney, but the majority, when I say us, I mean Black women, the majority of them, the Black women in corporate America, in fields that are dominated by white men, are thinking beyond that. I don't need to be in this space. As you said, I don't need to be at this table. I'm going to go make my own table. I'm going to go invite my friends. We're going to create a whole new space where we are comfortable, where we can be the same person at work as we are at home, where we can dominate, and we don't need to fit in. We don't need to be this person anymore. And so I think it's evolved beyond, let us try and fit into this space and create our own space. I think that's where they are right now.
You know, sometimes I can tell you that stereotype follows a Black female, even when it's not true. For example, I'm in education, and I can tell you, I've been in education for 15 years, and every single year, I always get the tough kids. Why? My principal does that, all of them. I think I've gone through now maybe 4 principals, and they've always said it, because you're Black, you can handle them. I'm like, because it's a stereotype that Black
Because
females
you
are
Black?
strong, you know, that we're strong and that we're tough and that we're hard and that the kids will listen to us. And I'm going to be honest, over the years in education, it's true, but it's also false,
Right.
because
Has
I have
nothing to do with the skin color.
yeah, I have had Black teachers who were very soft and the kids ran all over them. That I've had Black teachers that can just look at a kid with the eye, just give them the eye, you know, the eye that your mom give you, and kids just
To
sit like,
teachers,
huh?
they give them to teachers, and teachers fall for that.
No, listen, my principals, and again, this is my 4th principal, and all 4 of us said the same thing to me. Because I had to ask, like, why do I always get the tough kids? And they were like, because Miss Hill, you've never had behavioral problems. Like, you just know how to deal with the kids. You know, I'll have kids come in my class and sit like perfect angels, and then they'll leave my class to go to another class, and they're tearing up the place. And they've said to me, how is it that the teachers have said to me, how is it that they're good for you, but they don't listen to me? And people have responded, oh, because she's Black. I don't think that has nothing to do with it because I'm Black. It's because I don't have time for the foolishness, right? And it's just that simple. But it is, the stereotype has been the Black teachers are tougher or harder on the kids, so we can handle the rougher kids, or the kids that have more behavioral problems than everybody else, that they're more soft spoken, and they say to them, boys and girls, please, can you just sit down? Meanwhile, I'm like, yo, sit down right now and don't let me tell you again. Like, that's it, I'm done, right? But in my mind, again, how you're raised play a big role
Correct.
in how you
Right.
deal with
How you
things. Like,
interact
my
with the
mother
world.
never said
Right.
to me, Sophia, my darling, can you just go and sit in the corner? My mother simply said, you better sit down right now, don't let me tell you again. And I knew to sit down.
Right.
So when I go in my classroom, I'm saying the same thing to my kids. It's not because I'm Black, it's because of how my mother spoke to me and how I was
Right.
raised, right? Because I've had Black teachers that came in the room that worked, and they were the same soft-spoken people, and kids ran all over them.
I mean, they could have been raised like you too, but they don't want to be that person. They don't want to be that teacher that when the parents go and said, the teacher yelled at me. Was it the black teacher? Oh.
And some of them can't bother. Them say, all right, you don't want to learn? That's on you.
Listen, I've had parents come to back
That's
to
right.
school night and walk in and they'll say, oh, it's a black teacher. Okay, I'm good. That's it. Because they know their kids are bad. So the minute the kids are with us, I've had parents request to have their kids in my class. And they've been very honest. Miss Hill, my child has serious behavioral problems. So I know they'll listen to you. Both black and white parents, right? But
Do you
it's
have
just
black
a
parents at your
stereotype.
school?
Black, white, everybody. Turkish, Indian, Chinese. No.
I love when my kids have black teachers, but it's only happened once in the how old are they? I don't know how many it's only happened once for one of them. The other is all these white women teaching my child, which is fine. The teachers are great, they're well educated, they treat my children great, but I'm just like, can I see a black woman, black man, black anything at this point? I don't know. Anyway,
I think I would like for my child to be able to experience all race teachers, because
Right.
I can tell from my experience that there's different levels, there's different things that they gain. I don't know how to explain it. And it just prepare them for real life, right? Because real life, that's real life. That's what they're really going to experience. But just towards something that Misha said in terms of you know, some people like being on the struggle bus and some people just make their own corner and stay in it. I can tell you again from my perspective, in every school that I've been, Black people have always been the minority. And I tell you this, lunchtime we're always together. Every free time we're always together. And one day we said to each other the other day, we were like, because it's just two of us in my building. And we were like, there you go, why don't we go socialize? Like, why don't we go mingle with, you know, the rest of the, but again, we understand each other lingo. It's comfortable when we're together. We don't have to play a role that we're not. So you find that you have some Black people that they just stay on the comfortable side. I'm just not even gonna try. Like, I would not go work with a bunch of Trump supporters. No, I'm gonna be in an argument every day. So I
openly Trump supporters. There are
openly Trump. I'm being
Trump supporters.
Listen, when I was buying my house,
something million, as a matter of fact.
Listen, when I was buying my house, I was very deliberate with the street that I lived on. I was like, how many Trump supporters are on the street? Because I can't, and you know, forgive me out there, Trump world, because I know some people that I know
who listening to this is a Trump supporter.
Like I said, the people that we know that are Trump supporters, okay? But I mean, I'm not gonna knock you, be who you are, support who you want to support. But I know we're not gonna have a conversation about Trump.
Who you want to support.
That was like the voting episode. I was like, but if you're not voting right, I don't know.
Right. I don't know if I really.
Not this time. Wait till next time when it's not so important.
Judging you. Okay? I'm judging you.
So wait, I don't want to cut anybody off if anyone has anything, because I was gonna wrap us up. Anything? We're good? Okay. So now I wanted to have us wrap up with thinking about our own selves and who we are, because we are all strong Black women, and kind of talking about or finishing the sentence, I am a strong Black woman because I am, and giving us those adjectives that mean or that, you know, help to describe you. And you can say as much or as little. You could just state it as your affirmation, or if you wanted to say a little bit about it, that's welcome too. So I am a strong Black woman because I am. Who wants to go first? Anybody?
I can go first. Okay. I will say I am a strong Black woman because I am resilient. That's me.
I will say I am a strong Black woman because I am sensitive.
Okay.
And I will add 2 sentences to that to say it is something I try most to hide about myself because it can be exhausting. But it's also thing I value most about myself, because it just makes me open to feel and intuit, you know, and it's an important part of myself, even if, you know.
Yep.
I am a strong Black woman because I embrace duality.
You gotta go. Yeah, you gotta keep going.
I think it's an important lesson that we all have to, like, it's not, you know, we're not, I think someone mentioned this earlier, we're not just one thing, we're all these things. And it means that I can be strong and I can be sensitive and I can be angry and I can be delightful and I can be carefree. I can be all these things, because that's what life is. It doesn't mean I'm in this one bucket of this is what Black women, you know, a Black woman is supposed to be. I'm all the things, right?
That sounds awesome.
I love it. And you said the right word. We don't have to be in a bucket. And I think sometimes that's what we get. But I'm sure we all, you know, as we reflect on who we are, we realize that we're that and more, you know, and there are parts of us that are this way, but there are parts of us that aren't. And so
yeah, and I think when you think about Black women and you think about the scientific beginnings of man, and you know, the first skeletons being found on the African continent, and you think about all those things, it's like even more validation that I am all those things, right? I am the mother of all things, and not just to say it just because I want to say it, but because if you are a scientist and someone who believes in science, then you know that there are facts about where life begins, right? And so I think as Black women, even more than anything else, we have to embrace all that we are.
I agree. Kind of want to change your mind now.
I mean, go ahead. Listen, duality, my dear.
Resilient, but I think I want to say that it's because I am vulnerable, and as I thought of it mostly because Carrie was like, "I'm all of those things, but I can still pop down." So,
yeah.
That is it. Honestly, that is it. For your input on, you know, what attributes of yourself really make you who you are, make you a strong Black woman. Unfortunately, we lost Soph. As you can see, if you're on YouTube. Actually, if you're on YouTube, you'd have seen we lost her a minute ago. But so we're gonna wrap up without her beautiful Black woman self, and we will catch you next time. And we love you and thank you as always.
Yeah. Please watch out for our lives that are coming. As Shar said earlier, we don't want you to forget. Now that you've had this intense conversation, check out IG.
Oh yeah, we should do it live. Okay. Yes.
Bye guys.
Bye.